This is just the beginning. That's the world that we live in. Let me help you believe in what we can do when we stand united. We are one with the world. We can make a brighter tomorrow. Together make a change. It's our life. We can't step back from what we know is right. So let's shine our light. Oh, let's shine our light.
I am Sanjoy Roy, the co-chair of the Catalyzing Change Week Programming Committee. Welcome to Catalyzing Change Week 2024. This is where we'll not just have conversations, but we'll actually see change. We'll see change makers, innovators within the social space. You'll meet government folks and funders. You'll see people who've done excellent good practice that we can learn from. And most importantly, it'll be a place to network, learn, and exchange ideas. So do dive right in to the Catalyzing Change Week 2024 and enjoy the experience. I am Sanjoy Roy, the co-chair of the
Good morning, good afternoon, good night, everybody. We are happy to welcome you to this session on Make Room for the Moonshots and the Mavericks. My name is Susana Ramirez. I'm part of the Secretariat of Catalyst 2030, and we are very happy to welcome you to this session. Just some minor housekeeping rules. Try to keep your video on if possible. This makes the experience of interaction even better for this session especially. Show your name and your company in the chat or rename yourself in the Zoom account. Keep yourself please muted unless you want to speak. And if that's the case, please raise your hand and we'll be happy to give you the word. And just with this, and most importantly, enjoy this session. I'll hand over directly to Brenda. Brenda, over to you. Brenda.
No, I know. Sorry, I haven't finished my first coffee yet, but I'm unmuted now. So welcome to all of you. My name is Brenda Herchmer, and I'm the founder and CEO of a social enterprise called Campus for Communities of the Future. I'm also the chair of the Canada chapter of Catalyst 2030. So welcome to Make Room for the Mavericks and the Moonshots. But I thought it might make sense if I started first by explaining, providing a little bit of background as to why a session called Make Room for the Mavericks and the Moonshots. A couple of months ago, we had one of our monthly chapter meetings. So all of your presenters today are members of the Canada chapter of Catalyst. But during this meeting a couple of months ago, we were thinking and starting to plan for this conference and had a lot of discussion among our members, and a number of themes started to emerge. So we've put together a number of different sessions. But at the end of it, and Alex Todd, who you'll meet shortly, kind of put up his hand, and he always asks these really brilliant questions. And what Alex Todd said, he said, we found the themes and presenters for a number of sessions, but he said we're innovators, and where's the moonshot? Where's our value proposition? What's our competitive advantage? And kind of stirred up that discussion. And those who were still part of the discussion at that point kind of landed on this idea that we need to share more about the moonshot challenges some of us, I think especially, were trying to tackle, to really, and it really motivated us to kind of dig into that topic and put this session together. So not only do we have some Mavericks on this panel, I'm also quite certain that they might be with us today as participants, and that's maybe hopefully why you signed up. So we're pretty sure that you're with us, and we hope that we'll hear from you as we start to discuss some really key issues. So we really do, we thought about this because we're all kind of outcome focused because we're social entrepreneurs. So what we wanted to ensure is that by the end of this webinar that we would all have a better understanding of Mavericks and what a moonshot really is, why social innovators are important. I think we also really wanted to share the reality of being a Maverick, the challenges, but also the opportunities. And you'll see that in terms of some of as each social entrepreneur tells a bit about their story and what challenge they've attempted to address. And also, how you can identify Mavericks if you're looking for a tribe, and how you could maybe even support them in terms of achieving the SDGs and other complex issues and opportunities. So that's the plan for today. So if we go to the next slide, we just thought it might make sense to think about, okay, what is a Maverick? What are we talking about here? And I know the first time that someone referred to me as a Maverick, it was actually she also this was a couple of years ago. And when she told me I was a Maverick, I kind of flinched a little bit. And I'm not sure that it was a compliment because it reminded me of all the times I was kind of whooped upside the head for being a bit of an outlier, or being described as a loose cannon, or someone who colored outside the lines and maybe even off the side of the desk, So so I wasn't really sure about that, but then then she called me a positive deviant, which is another way of thinking about a Maverick. So I thought, okay, I'm starting to buy in. But I think we are, and look at, I was thought that word social innovator was so important. I put it in there twice. Oops. But also outliers. Sometimes we're called outliers. Anybody have do you have other names but hopefully we're in the same ballpark with that. But yeah. So visionary. Oh, thank you, Jacob. Oh, right. Not just loose cannons like that. Okay. But what we did figure out is that what we are as Mavericks are really those who pursue innovative solutions. And when you're a social innovator, it's about social, cultural, environmental, but it also is about economic issues. We are driven by a social mission that addresses root causes, and that I know for sure was the case with me, as we may be able to share later. But it's also about large scale positive change for the public good. I know we all apply entrepreneurial strategies. I think the important thing that a lot of people don't understand, that as social innovators and Mavericks, there's different ways of structuring what we do. And so some of us are nonprofits or charities, or under the definition that Canada is using now for the sector, they're not calling us a social innovation sector, they're calling us a social purpose sector. And so by their definition, that includes nonprofits, charities, businesses with a primary social mission. So it's a great umbrella for us to be a part of. But I think with Mavericks, we also do see something. We see creativity. We certainly see fortitude, and I don't know if it's courage or just stubbornness, or being kind of naive sometimes. I don't know. But I definitely think there's courage. I know a lot of people have taken risks to be able to tell you their stories today. And I think that what distinguishes us from other traditional social service providers or social activists is that it's this entrepreneurial approach and new solutions and systems. So that's kind of what we came up with in terms of a Maverick, and I see some of you nodding, which is always encouraging. And then we kind of dove into, well, what's a moonshot? And that's on the that's really came about when they were first started, when Kennedy first started talking about sending a spacecraft to the moon. So that's where the term came from. And when you think about it, that was a pretty monumental and a pretty lofty goal and pretty ambitious and groundbreaking. And I think that's where moonshots find their space a lot of times. I think what makes it courageous a lot of times is that there's no real assurance of immediate profitability or benefits, so that makes it tough. It is transformative. That's really what one of the common denominators, and it's transformative in nature. It's breakthrough, and thus the term positive deviance. And it is, I think it really is, it's about it being a risk taker. And I don't know that I was ever encouraged to be a risk taker. And I think that's something that we all need to maybe work at doing in terms of, especially in terms of youth and young adults. But it is too about pushing the boundaries. So I think that's where we want to start off. And one of the things we're going to encourage you to answer these same questions as we kind of move through. We can take the I think we can yeah. Those are some of the questions we're going to talk about. Why are you a Maverick? What is it you're doing? What have been the challenges? What could you do differently? What have been the key learnings? And what call to action or advice? We're going to ask our panelists that question too. So we can take those questions, take the PowerPoint down, and because now we can just have a conversation. We had a lot of people. A lot of people register. We're finding that in a lot of sessions, but somehow this smaller number, I think, is really going to be conducive to a conversation. So I'm going to start with Alex with that first question and say, when did you, and the same with our participants, when did you, if you did, start to think of yourself as a Maverick? So Alex, do you want to go?
Sure. Hi, everybody. Thanks, Brenda, for the great introduction, and thank you for inviting me to this event. Yeah. So, you kind of think it's kind of you might be a Maverick, you don't know about it. You're doing things that are out of the box, and then suddenly at some point, in my case, I got the insight that we know how to solve problems in a technical sense. For example, I don't want to get technical here, but I was at IBM and we had a technical solution for cryptography to trust cryptographic keys. And it was a very elaborate system that cost millions of dollars so that you don't encrypt something to the wrong person. And what I realized was it's a cryptographic key is just information. And to make a long story short, I got the insight that we could use the principles of public key cryptography, or PKI, to trust any kind of information. And so that led me to developing a universal framework for diagnosing and designing conditions for trust that essentially it was an innovation. It was a whole different way of thinking. We had risk management, and risk management was a very well-known practice, but it was all about how you can prevent risks or manage risks. But nobody was really focused on enabling trust and in a systematic way, because risk management inhibits and slows down economic transactions, whereas trust accelerates the volume and velocity and value of transactions. So I went on a journey that ultimately led to identifying corporate governance styles that were correlated with firm performance, uniquely with different kinds of firm performance. So there you go, from a technical cryptographic key to corporate governance best practices and firm performance. So I realized there was a total outlier, and what I was trying to do is change the paradigm for just risk management to enabling trust. So ultimately, where does this lead to today? Why am I doing what I'm doing today? The insight was that we had, with public key infrastructures and the trust enablement work that I did, I realized that blockchain technologies, which were emerging back in 2015, could be a whole new trust enabling infrastructure to facilitate building trust. And I realized that, hey, we could suddenly imagine in this increasingly global village that we could actually make it, where it is getting more and more difficult to trust strangers, because normally we had trust or our communities, our local communities, those in order to get access to opportunities. Suddenly in a global village, nobody knows anybody, and it's difficult to trust anybody. So we could actually empower people with the ability to be trusted by strangers by building a social credit on a blockchain, by making commitments to each other, to people making commitments and recording them on a blockchain through what's called a smart contract concept. And so they're making social contracts with each other, and those are registered and immutable on a blockchain. And then as they build up their commitment portfolio, they could be then trusted by strangers for being reliable, personal integrity, their authentic commitment to their purpose. So that was the vision in 2017, and I incorporated Reliably Me exactly for that purpose in 2018, and it's been quite the journey so far.
Thanks, Alex. That's a great start. This whole idea of trust and behaviors, it's solving a lot of underlying issues, and you've addressed it a little bit. But if I had to ask you to describe in one sentence, what's the symptoms, the problems that you were like, how are you applying that in real life now? Because it is about lack of trust, right? And how we can measure that.
So ultimately, we can address this in many different ways. Right now, there is a trust issue in multiple places. There's a trust issue in references that people get when they're applying, using to apply for a job. Do you trust the person who's providing the reference to be objective, or is it a family member or friend of the person? So there's a trust issue there. There's a trust issue in measuring the UN SDGs. How do you know that the initiatives and the money that's being funded and the resources being applied towards advancing the SDGs are actually making progress, okay, towards the SDGs? We can't trust that. It's a lot of that data is coming from the NGOs, nonprofits, and it's anecdotal. It's stories, but it's nothing objective. There are trust problems everywhere. I can keep going on, but in essence, we have a huge trust problem.
You're also using it with students, with university students, co-op students.
Yes, we're running internship programs, and the co-op students are using Reliably Me to make commitments to me and to each other. And as they follow through on their commitments, they're getting recognized with badges and populating their commitment portfolios that also calculate their reliability rating, their punctuality score, their confidence factor, and also their engagement points. And we also, because we have a commitments-based nudging process, which is academically proven to be the most cost-effective way to affect behavior change, the nudges are questions and requests, progress updates on a regular basis, on a daily basis. They're, how are they using AI, and what was the impact of that? What's their experience of the internship, et cetera, et cetera. And they are, so we're gathering a rich quantitative and qualitative intern-generated data. That's a very rich data set.
Yeah.
And then we're using AI to fill out their evaluation forms for school. So all we do is give AI the PDF evaluation form in PDF format, and it fills out, based on all the data that we've gathered, automatically fills out their evaluation forms. So yes, it's a very powerful way of affecting behavior change, incentivizing, gamifying the whole process, and empowering them ultimately to be more effective and more successful.
That's great, Alex. That's a really important overview that you've provided. But I can also see, and I also want to assure people, this is one of those initiatives that has so many different applications, as was pointed out. And the more you think about it, the more you'll see the potential for it. And Jacob, thank you for your comment in the chat. It is, it is a model of social credits. I don't know if you wanted to add something more to that.
The social credit aspect?
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
so
no, I saw asking Jacob if he wanted to add
Oh,
to
sure.
it,
Oh,
because I think he's
sure.
he's immediately taken your idea and started to think
Yeah.
about how it can be applied. So
I see that.
that's great. Thank you. Okay, so Laura, do you want to go next? And
Absolutely. Morning,
yeah, just
everybody.
you'll have to introduce yourself too. Sorry.
Of course
because,
I
you know,
will.
yeah,
Thank you.
yeah.
Thank you. First of all, to answer the question, when did I first think of myself as a maverick? Well, I guess I've never really thought of myself as a maverick until I was invited. But the more I think about it, I think it's a really fitting moniker. When I first presented my concept and my idea to the Caribbean Climate Innovation Center at a boot camp in 2018, the CEO was really supportive. He had said that many others had tried and failed. And I've always applied design thinking principles to problem solving. And I always enjoy looking and seeking for innovative solutions. Having said that, our social enterprise startup is called Carib Farm, and we provide a new solution for small-scale farmers, connecting farmers with one another and the power of knowledge. And so, and the reason behind all of this, and at the same time as Alex, back in 2018, I was living in a small island and I wore lots of different hats, like most people do on small islands. And as the manager of our market garden in the Caribbean, I learned firsthand the challenges that farmers face in finding, reliable and timely knowledge and information, and especially as it relates to the rapidly changing climate that we're all dealing with, and small islands feel it more than anybody. And so farmers need to adapt to survive, and therefore what we're doing is trying to bring together all the stakeholders to bring the knowledge from the people who have the capacity to do the cutting edge, creating those solutions like universities and researchers, and bring that knowledge to the farmers in a way that they can adapt quickly. There you go. Well, Brenda, I think you're muted, maybe.
The underlying problem that you're addressing with that.
Mm-hmm.
Can you go a bit deeper on that?
Sure. Yeah, we had a small market garden. We were managing a seaside property, and it was kind of this run-down old resort. And on the property was a garden, and we restored the garden, or market garden, about a half acre. And at the same time, we were running a B&B, and we brought in international volunteers from literally around the globe in order to train people on organic tropical farming in a permaculture, and kind of at the same time, this is 10 years ago, thinking in terms of climate. And we did all kinds of trial and error. And when I needed to find information, I just couldn't, and I had the digital chops to be able to do it. But others didn't. And I thought, if it's this challenging for me, what's happening with my neighbors? And so I got brave and I went and asked them, and everybody was facing the same problems. So I thought, maybe I can use mobile technology to create a solution that makes things easier for farmers, and they can just use their phone.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we're going to pass the baton to Marc-Andre, who's going to tell you, introduce himself and the issue, and an overview of his company. So take it away.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. A bit picking up on what Laura was saying. For me too, I didn't consider myself a maverick till we start isolating the title and getting the invitation for the webinar. But then when I look back at my path, my roadmap, I see, yes, there's a lot of moments that I could say that that's what the image people had in their mind when they were looking at what I'm doing and the ambition. I've always enjoyed picking up projects that they had been failures before and turning it into a success, and I did have success in doing that. So that's a inner motivation of working with others' perception, or motivation from others' perception that something is going to fail or can't work because they tried it before, and they have that image stuck in their head. So there's a reward also personally for bringing it a step forward with the design thinking, system thinking, looking at it from a different angle. I guess that comes also from my philosophy background, a little bit of trying to challenge the purpose, the way things were done, and it does put me in that mindset of Maverick, where there's no innovation without the courage of walking outside the normal path. If you cannot go step above or beyond the perception of something that cannot work and be stuck in something that is a balanced system, and not accepting status quo, questioning the purpose, and even don't be afraid to be disruptive, just to look at what's the value, the end value of it. So that's where I feel more comfortable. I don't feel comfortable staying in something for too long that I think it's comfortable, but it doesn't work. I can see things, so there's always something that is annoying me in the background. So I think that's part of the personality of being a Maverick, that you can't stand that status quo that is something that's annoying. So it like I was saying, is disruptive. It can be a bothering other people, and then we get that kind of negative feedback that we can't stay put and just do as we're told. In today's society, also the way success is supported by a continuity and the manifestation around us, the friends, the families. Also, I worked in banking. People saying, "Well, there's a job in banking. You should do this." No, it's a dead end. So I can't go in that direction. But my project with the Synertium is about sustainability. I didn't know it was going to be so much focus on sustainability when I started 5 years ago, because it was about project management. I saw that there was a need for many cool, interesting project, but there was not the manpower to deliver the project management and make the projects happen with the proper structure, management of the resources, etc. So I had worked a lot in project management before, and I wanted to bring that to small businesses. But then right from the beginning, I said, I wanted to have a purpose, so I'm going to focus on sustainable projects. And then what I noticed even more, that there's a lot of sustainable projects out there, but sustainability projects is not always accessible. There's a cost for that with consultants, the cost, and there's a lot of consulting that is being done, like moral guidelines with strategies, but not much on the implementation of the actual project. And then those projects just stay on the ground and they lose their momentum. So for Synertium, the solution is, we do consulting, we do coaching in sustainability transition, we do circular economy, business structure, we do the impact reporting, but we do also the chief sustainability officer on demand role. But the way it's different is that we are also a collective that aims to bring social changes on 3 levels. So there's a lot of people. Part of the problem that I noticed is that even for myself, I was more than over 35, and I see there was a lot of programs to try to integrate younger people in trainings to become experts of sustainability, so targeting postgraduate or university level. But I felt there was some ageism about that when I was looking at big institutions, that there's a whole many generations that were being left out of the transformation, social transformation. And it was oriented to people that had access to that education. But in Global South, in many countries, there's no space to integrate those people in the equation and own the transformation. And then at the same time, there's a big demand for projects, like I was saying before, but there's also a lot of offer. There's a lot of people that want to be part of the change, but they can't see where's the door to start fitting and being part of the change. So I wanted to bring that opportunity for myself and for others to develop their skills through working on real projects, helping businesses to develop their projects. So there's a skill development. There's a first level of change for the individuals that want to become change makers with an experience. Then the second level of change is for the businesses to have projects that can actually, projects of positive impact that can actually happen, because we're making the transformation and the project management accessible beyond simple consulting or moral guidance. And then the businesses themselves, the more there's businesses that have a positive impact, they're giving their influence, they influence society and bring society towards a responsible economic and social systems transition. So on those three levels. So that's the idea. And then when we're looking, and also to make it more accessible, because of the cost of supporting project is very high for many times. So the project management helped them to structure that. We accompany the businesses, and we look at circular economy in a holistic perspective. It's not just about later we developed a map that can show how to use materials for certain usage, but the real idea of circular economy is that it adds more levels of transaction economic cycles, and it can help to empower a local economy, make the productivity more accessible. Doesn't need to be a US factory that goes and sets itself in a less developed country and takes all the manpower, all the local production away from them. Circular economy can serve as a way to motivate, give work, create revenue from accessible resources, and cleaning the environment at the same time as a transition for more resilient society and economies.
Thank you. That's awesome. I think one of the things that you nailed is that I think sometimes with social entrepreneurs, I don't know that we go looking for the problem kind of finds us a lot of times. And I think probably the other thing that is evolving from this conversation is that we don't always end up with what we started. And I think that's the thing we want others to understand, that it's a messy process. It's also very social. That's one of the things that surprised me, because I think we think about innovation as coming from one person. And what we're finding is that it's very a social process. We all learn from one another. Just by way of example, me learning about Alex and what Marc-Andre are doing, we've ended up with kind of sidebar meetings, and we haven't quite figured this out. I've been working on measuring capacity for collaboration and community building for a lot of years. So I have a lot of great tools that have been very informed by practice. But then when I started talking to Alex and Marc-Andre, it was like, well, how can we measure this? How can we measure the SDGs? How can we measure capacity? And so we're starting to have that conversation. And I have no doubt that, I mean, they hurt my brain every meeting, so I know something is going to evolve for sure. But that's what we need others to know, that it takes time, and it takes time and funding to fund this process. And I think you've all touched on that frustration as well. So I have to change hats now. This is really hard for me because I'm moderating, but I also want to just share a bit about my own social enterprise. So if I can just jump in with this, and then I'll go put my moderator hat back on. But I just wanted to tell you a bit about my initiative and the solutions, and really what was, I don't think I knew it was a moonshot at the time, but what really has been a moonshot solution. So what the Campus for Communities of the Future does, it is really about empowering collective capacity in communities and neighborhoods for local social, economic, and environmental well-being. And what we've really focused on for a lot of years now has been strengthening collective capacity for whole community, sector-connected approaches. That's the lane that we're in. It's not a very busy path, I'll tell you, but there's a growing interest in it. So those seeds were planted for me a number of years ago. I was a professor and a director at Niagara College, which is different from a university in that it kind of bridges high school and university. There's something in between that is very, very pragmatic and practical. And so it's a lot about, I always think university is about wings and theories and philosophies, but college is about landing gear. And so I kind of had that pragmatic bent, I think. But because when I was at the college, a local family foundation, two of their members of the board of directors came to me and said, look, we are just tired of funding symptoms. We're funding food banks and serving the unhoused, and we really want to deal with and treat the underlying root causes. And so we did a lot of focus groups, a lot of research, and what we ended up really landing on initially is that, the only organizations and the impact we were seeing was coming when there were effective leaders involved. So the core root cause was ineffective leadership at a lot of different levels. And, so we started really focusing on building capacity and measuring the competencies that were needed for what many communities, we had so many focus groups across the country, what they determined were important for community leaders. And then we saw, then what ended up becoming really clear is that the real moonshot, starting to think from a bigger picture, it was the real moonshot is fixing our broken systems, because we're so silo based, and what we really need is more opportunities to work and collectively. It's really the collective intelligence within the groups. And so what that really has led to our work of really focusing on what we saw was missing, which was that it needs to be somebody's role as a sector connector, a neutral party to bring what we see as 4 sectors: the social purpose sector, the business sector, the government sector, and most importantly, the citizens. So that's kind of a moonshot. That is a moonshot. We're making progress. This network, the Catalyst Network, has really helped in terms of getting ideas and connecting to other talents. So, but it's not, being a social entrepreneur is not without its challenges, which leads us to our next question. And whoever wants to go first with this one. The question really was, what have been the most significant challenges as well as the greatest joys of being a social innovator? Laura, jump in.
Yeah, sure. Thanks. I think one of my greatest challenges is, because I'm going to go with your talking about silos, is that by having a knowledge sharing community platform that's digital, first of all, brings people together across huge geographies, which works great for small islands. And I think that our challenge has been gathering the players and the stakeholders. Lots of people talk about things being siloed, but the solution is not so simple, to bring the people together in one place. And this is the idea and the foundation behind our farmer community. And so we bring together the people who can take the risks, like the researchers and the universities who have the capacity to do it, with the farmers. And I think that challenge of bringing together the players and the stakeholders, and then of course funding is always a challenge, right? You don't even need to talk about that. And I think that my greatest joy and my most humbling moments are when I receive these amazing responses. I put together a volunteer post, looking for somebody, and then I get 50 responses from brilliant people across the globe. Professionals on our team are just experts in their field, and they believe in what I'm trying to do. And this is what keeps me going. So that's the joy. That's really the joy. I mean, these folks are from the FAO, the World Bank, the UN, huge universities across the globe. And it's just heartwarming. And that's my joy. Thanks. You're muted, Brenda. Oh,
We can't hear you, Brenda.
Brenda, you're muted, I think.
I can't believe I did that again. Oh,
It
Brenda,
looks
can
interesting.
I maybe just share something briefly?
Please. Yes.
So Lamont Kritzinger is my name, from Dublin, Ireland. So I've joined this session not because I regard myself as one of those shooting for the moon, but I wanted to hear the context. We just launched an initiative 3 weeks ago, so it's sort of early stages and a lot of work. But I do have 1 or 2 things just to share on this, which I think probably resonates, and if anybody has any other guidance. But so we in the climate education space, schools and youth using the creative arts, and I have reached out to many people on LinkedIn over the past 2-3 months to try and build a community, get advice, etc., etc. And I did get a lot of negative response, I'd say, from some quarters. And if I had to put it in themes, I'd say it would be there are enough charities, there are enough organizations, there are enough whatever doing all of this. It's fine. You're taking funding away potentially from somewhere, et cetera, et cetera. So I think there's that to deal with for new initiatives, which is fine, because actually, in fact, my response to some of those people have been, it's a big world and it's a big challenge, and all initiatives, maybe have got a home, and but we've got to try and find people that are attracted to what we're offering and what we're doing and what we're passionate about. I'm the founder, so and I'm a pianist. I'm quite fond of creative arts, etc. So so that I think's been a challenge, and I think that is a challenge for others. I also got some responses that said, this is overly ambitious, and that was actually an easy reply for me, because I think a big problem like global climate and sustainability requires very ambitious plans. I don't think you can have small plans to address it properly. So that was for me a easy, not being arrogant, but being a little bit more forthright about that. The joy is a little bit similar to the lady who's just spoken there. To your feedback, we actually recruiting in inverted commas, they're all volunteers, but in-country ambassadors. And we have about, at the launch on World Earth Day 3 weeks ago, we had about 6. We have about 15 now, 3 weeks later. That's 15 countries on board. And the joy for me is when you find somebody in a country, whether it's Kenya or Uganda, Comoros or Mauritius or Italy, who says, geez, that resonates with me. I've been doing that. I've done something similar. I want to be part of this. And then it sort of gives you, I hope that, there is some value in this. Anyway, just to share that with the group.
Thank you, Lamont. That's a great share. And I can see a lot of people nodding. And I think it also reinforces the comment that Abigail put into the chat about how we need to stay connected and figure out how we can support one another. It might be that we need a subgroup of Catalyst 2030, pull together these Mavericks from around the world. And Marc-André, do you want to dig in with the joys
I
and the
wanted
challenges?
to surf a bit on what Lumon was presenting. I really like the project. I'd like to connect with you and talk about it further, Lumon, after that, because there's challenges, and there's never enough. Maybe there's enough charities, you could say, but I mean, that's debatable. Our angle at CNHM is more to how do we bring a value that there's a recognition and it's independent, financially self-supportive. When the people see the value, it could be partnerships with local governments, other initiatives, and then becomes we do pilot projects. But later it can become, I think you're already near to that stage of becoming an umbrella organization for similar initiatives that can join forces together and have a stronger impact, and measure that impact also, but have a bigger reach for everybody. There's a lot of similar initiatives, but they don't have the same level of organization, and they suffer of competition, we could say, or not knowing what the other ones do and not being able to grow together and inspire each other on what's the best practices and the best models. So I'd like to talk about it further with you in the near future.
And thank you for reinforcing the importance of meetings and networking like this, because we can already see connections starting to be made. That's the social aspect of the innovation that is really important. So Alex, do you want to jump in with the joys and the challenges, or should we go to the next question? Oh,
happy.
Yeah, or I was going to say, if you don't mind, maybe we should just go to the next question, and because I'm mindful of the time. That's my moderator hat, kind of kicking in. So, what would you have done differently? I just want to get to some key learnings for because I think those are valuable takeaways, and maybe that kind of ties in with your advice for how others could support Mavericks. So
I could continue and try to wrap those 3 questions in one answer.
Go ahead, that'd be awesome.
So just quick challenge for me. The beginning, the trouble was trying to find what's the purpose, position the purpose on the market for people to see the value that we bring with the work experience transition of the economy. It was hard at the beginning, a challenge to have a clear vision, and for us and for others to be able to either look at what's the collaborations and partners that we want to have that are going to contribute identify them and be able to contribute and try to pick up the signals of early failures, not to go too fast, too far in the wrong directions. But we don't know that at the beginning. So we need to have a lot of patience and humility, how to look at it from a bit of a distance. So that connects a little bit with some of the advice. For me, I would not have done nothing differently. It needed to be cloudy for me, because if I knew too much too early, I would maybe not have went in some of those directions. I would have looked for things that was more comfort or structured. I would not have been able to welcome chaos as much and try to give it structure. And it's a personal process. What I knew is I couldn't stay at the same place. I had ambition. I didn't know exactly where. It was like an adventure. So I said, I have these tools, picking up my tools. I'm going somewhere to build something. So having that confidence. But if things are too clear too early, you're not it can limit us in the motivation. But at the beginning, it was hard to deal with that uncertainty. It creates a stress. So an advice is maybe to not stress too much. Welcome that uncertainty. It's part of the process. And I remember a quote saying, if everything is is very clear, it's because you're on somebody else's path. You're just redoing something somebody else did. Uncertainty, cloudness is because you're on your path of trying to make something that's important. It resonates with you. And it is important that what we're trying to do, it's not just about bringing better actions that make the world better, but actions that make ourselves better also at the same time. We're in our own transformation on that mission as we're trying to bring change to the world. And very important to recognize, make space for others to grow around us also, and celebrate what others do. All the small steps are important in that collaboration and having people around us that keep the same passion of bringing positive change.
Wow, that's awesome. You said at least 4 things that I would print on a t-shirt. Plus, I look at that and the quotes in the chat. It's like, oh, there might be another enterprise opportunity here. Let's go into the t-shirt business with all these catchy phrases. Okay, so Alex, can you kind of jump in with the question about the learnings, the takeaway learnings, and what advice you would offer others? And then I'm going to come back to Laura to answer those same 2 questions.
Sure, happy to. I guess if you're a visionary and you're trying to go for a moonshot, you're seeing things that other people are not seeing by definition. And therefore they're not focused on it. It's not something that it's top of mind. It's not something that is very tangible to them at any given time. So to Marc-André's point, it's fuzzy. And so the biggest issue is that with our platform, which is so generic, as Brenda mentioned, we could apply it for so many different things. We can use it. So we create hypotheses that, this is a market that could use this. So we'll apply it here. And then we, find another one that didn't work so well. Let's try another one, and so on. So with a generic platform, think of ChatGPT, or think of the iPhone, or think about anything that's a generic platform. You have to find a customer need or want that you're satisfying that's very compelling, that excites people. And so that's been the problem. The problem number 1 is product market fit for any particular problem. Okay, it's compelling. And so the lesson learned is that if you're pursuing a future vision, so there are, a very well-known, famous actually, venture capital company called Sequoia, you may have heard of them, has come up with a framework of archetypes of startups. Now, we're talking about social businesses here, but this applies equally. Either it's a hair on fire archetype of your business. In other words, something's been identified as a real problem. So a government regulation comes in and everybody has to comply, okay? Or COVID hits and everybody has to deal with something, right? That's a hair on fire. That's a place where there's a compelling need, but everybody jumps to solve a problem. There's a ton of competition, okay? So that's not the place that people who have a moonshot are going for moonshots and are future visionaries play. They don't play in that space. Okay. The next one is hard fact. So something they call it hard. It's where it's obvious that it's needed, but everybody's comfortable in their where they currently are. So a good example of that is measuring impact of the SDGs, or being able to change, affecting behavior change, measuring behavioral outcomes and as a leading indicator of impact, being able to justify objectively the value of the funding that organizations are getting, being funded based on performance. All those things are things that are needed, and yet everybody's comfortable with the status quo of having these anecdotal stories about their contributions to the SDGs. So those are examples. Or improving the outcomes of internships, or empowering students to be recognized for their extracurricular, co-curricular, and other activities with some sort of experiential learning credential. So all those are kind of yes, they're needed, and yet nobody is willing to do anything because it's not on their radar. It's not a priority. So those are the hard fact ones, and so that's really what I've been focused on, and I haven't found people who are actually see it the same way. Right?
Alex, right? I think it's like a lot. One of the things we've learned is that we need to find the early adopters who already want what we have, and I think that is definitely a challenge. And I think in general, and this is kind of a theme that's starting to evolve, is that I think we're used to being rejected, but it's often a rejection because people don't have a bucket to put in what we're doing. Right. And so that is complicated. And along that journey, there isn't a lot of funding or a lot of payment. So if you're okay, Alex, I just want to give Laura a chance to jump in here. This moderator role is killing me because I hate cutting off conversations because it's so interesting. But I do hope, if nothing else, we will manage to keep this kind of a group together, because that's why I'm a bad moderator too, because I'm getting really engaged in the conversations. But okay, Laura, go.
Thanks, Brenda. I think that I would have done lots of things differently, but one of the things I think I would have done is not stayed solo for so long and brought in these wonderful people earlier. And I would have had the confidence, to believe that people believed in what I was trying to achieve. I think that when it comes to action and advice of how you can support folks like us, is that risk takers, they just need like a small pocket of safety, because they're willing to go out on the edge. But just a tiny little platform of safety would be easier to sleep at night. And I think that whether that is in funding or just some other means of support, because it's a lonely road. I mean, it's a lonely road. There's a lot of people who keep, who will say to me, "You're still doing this and you still don't have any funding." And it's like, Laura, you could be making, hundreds of thousands of dollars doing your regular career. What are you doing? And sometimes that's really compelling, and I think that as Mavericks, even though we're out there on the cutting edge and we're shooting for the moon, is that we have self-doubts and we wonder, like, are we traveling an impossible path? And that's tough. And I think that, we need support. And that's what keeps me going, is, when I get these applications from the volunteers, or I hear, yes, it's great. How are you going to do it? So people believe in what we're trying to do. It's like, how can you possibly make it happen? Yeah.
Thank you, Laura. You just nailed some really important issues there. I think this is not an easy road. I've often heard social innovators use the word lonely. I know it's how I describe the path that I've been on for a lot of years, but it's like we don't have a choice either. When we see it's almost, and sometimes I wonder if it is kind of an obsessive compulsive thing. But I've also heard, and maybe this is where we can kind of wrap up and have you jump in with things that I might have missed. But I think some of the advice that we've we've heard for how we can support social entrepreneurs is to also to get funders away from one-off projects and thinking they have to have the solutions before they can put money behind it. I
Yeah.
think the other, it's about funding the capacity to get beyond those one-off projects that I think is really important. And I think that I don't know if it's the same in other countries, but in Canada, they have a tendency to think bigger is better. So much of the funding for social innovation goes to large organizations, and they are more focused. I think what we've seen and heard is more generally they're focused on funding their own staff, these large national organizations. And so they're not interested in funding a social innovator who comes to them with a great idea. And I've so often had the response that, oh, that's not the responsibility. Oh, I don't think that's our job. And so we get kind of stuck with that. I also have heard someone say, I'm not sure where this came from, but what they wished funders would do is take 10 to 20% of their funding and fund things that don't quite meet their criteria. We want funders to take a risk to follow to fund the smaller organizations, to fund the messy, because this is not a linear world. It's so organic now. We don't have the ending. It's fuzzy, as has been pointed out. But I also think everybody needs to know how hard we work. I have never worked so hard in my life for so little money. But on the other hand, there's so much joy. There is so much joy. And I think in addition to working hard, social innovators are creative, curious, and a valuable contribution. And I love, Laura, the way you framed it. We just need a little bit of security. And it's a fabulous investment. So I know I need to turn it over to Susanna. Any last thoughts? Can we follow up with all of you? Yeah, okay. Well, I think this is really becoming an item for action. I think for our chapter or us individually. I don't know what we need to continue this conversation. So thank you all. And Susanna, I got to flip it over to you. So
Thank you, Brenda, for this amazing session, and to all the speakers and the participants. Just one piece of information that I wanted to share with all of you. It's recorded, so everybody can have also access to this after this session. But as you know, we are actually launching right now as well one tool that is called Ask Catalyst. So try it out. I'll put the information in the chat for all of you as well. Basically, you can ask anything about this movement and about this network. We also have the awards happening every single year. So if you know someone in the government, in the academic sector, in the corporates, in the multilaterals world as well, that you would like to nominate for the awards of Catalyst, please go and nominate them. We also have a great initiative from our members that is called Catalyst Market. Check it out and maybe do your shopping. And if you're still not a Catalyst member and you're interested in joining, explore our websites, reach out to us, and we'll be very happy to have a conversation with you. And thank you again for your time. We hope you keep enjoying these 2 days that we still have of Catalyzing Change Week, and we'll probably see you around in other sessions this week. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Everybody.
It was great.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care.
Bye-bye.